Good evening again, everybody. Welcome to Boro Fan TV and the Monday Night Show with me, James Hutchinson. Unfortunately, Boro's winning run came to an end at the weekend as Halloween came a day early, and we were treated to a bit of a horror show against Birmingham City at the Riverside. Joining me to look back at the weekend's events, as well as previewing this week's tough away games at Luton and West Brom, are Jacob Waters and David Campbell. Evening, lads.
Evening.
How are you guys?
Nice to see you. We're joined again by Robbie, the Birmingham City fan. Hello, Robbie. We'll still talk to you, mate, despite what happened on Saturday. Nice of you to join us again. Boro fans of other clubs like Robbie, if you want to join in, get involved in the debate tonight. If you want to let us know what you thought of Saturday's performance, were you surprised by it? And are you now reconsidering your hopes and aims for the Boro this season? Let us know. This is your platform, as always, Boro fans, so get involved in this week's Monday Night Show. So without further ado, David, I'll come to you first with regards to the Birmingham game. It was an unchanged starting 11 named by Neil Warnock, but there was certainly a change in terms of the makeup of that 11 and how they played and how they were set out, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't change the team after the three on the bounce and the performance and what have you. But Howson, for the first 5 minutes, started at right back and then he quickly moved into midfield. And we touched upon it on last week's show. I just think his legs have gone in midfield. When he's been playing in defence, either in three of the centre halves or right back, he looks a lot more stable and he looks a completely different player. But as soon as he went in midfield, there was just the physical battle we were losing. And he didn't offer literally anything. I'm trying not to put too much blame on just that substitution, that change, because we were rocky throughout. We were so disjointed and we just lost the whole balance of the game by getting bullied.
Yeah. And Jacob, and Robbie's back again there. Big win for Blues, and I've got no doubt about that. And Michael Pellin said no promotion talk tonight. Yeah, I think we'll put that one on the back burner for a week or two now, Michael, but you never know. But Jacob, I mean, the Blues keeper, Matija Sarkic, really tested over the course of the 90 minutes. And in the first half, probably the one bright spark was Anel Hernandez. And he put on a really good cross on a plate for Hutchy, and the big man should have really done better with that opportunity, shouldn't he?
Yeah, you're telling me, mate. I'm still reliving that now. Just nod it in. I seen the match a little bit different. I thought we controlled the first half. We didn't create a lot, but I felt we controlled it. I always felt we were on top. Piero, whilst he didn't have his best game, he still had a few nice deft passes in behind. Onel Hernandez was causing them problems. And I personally thought it's a matter of time before we have another clear-cut opportunity and we go 1-0 up. So when we went in at half-time and everyone was giving him a clap, I thought, fair play, we're definitely on top in that game. Mm-hmm. And then, as we've already spoke about, that howler, I think, just sent us into despair. And I know, I think looking at Birmingham, in all honesty, I know Robbie's watching, but I thought they were one of the worst teams I've seen at the Riverside this season. In terms of, I mean, they were solid in terms of their tactics and they play a very direct style of football, but passing-wise, not great. Scott Hogan was good when he got on a flank and he could pick the ball up there. Their back line was strong throughout. I'll give them that. But in terms of like a football inside that looked like they were going to penetrate at any moment, I didn't think that they had anything. And I think it was really, not to get on his back too much, but a mistake of Joe Lumley, which sent that game into despair. That's how I view that one.
Okay. See, I'd say Uche as well, though, Jacob. I think we were competing with a physical battle whilst we had Uche on, and when he went off injured, I thought that was the changing point. But the officiating for me was absolutely ridiculous from the first whistle. Howson got kicked after about a minute, and it was a blatant yellow card. They were just doing bully tactics, and the referee, I mean, I seen Warnock saying he was the youngest referee we've had this season. You could tell he was getting bullied by the Birmingham players. He lost control of the game straight away. If he got a yellow cards out, and then their game plan would have gone out the window because they wouldn't have been able to bully as such. Their right back, that Jordan Graham, he should have been booked at least 3 times for what he'd done on Hernandez. Hernandez had done him on the byline, and there was simple yellow cards, and he wasn't giving them. So as much as I'm saying as bad as we were, I think the officiating had a big part to play on that game.
I'm just going to say, David, I was going to bring you in on this as well about Ikpeazu. I mean, mentioned there that he went off after 40 minutes, but one of the big talking points in the first half was the incident involving Ikpeazu and Dion Sanderson. Do you think the Birmingham centre-half should have gone?
He didn't even get a yellow, and I think that was a little bit ridiculous. From where I was sat, I thought he caught him, but it was accidental. So for me personally, I thought it was more of a yellow. But like I say,
he was already on a yellow, wasn't he, mate?
Yeah, he was. He was already on a yellow. Yeah.
Oh, right. No, I didn't know that. I didn't think he was, so I thought that's why he didn't give him it. Well, then, yeah, that would have been a second yellow and then off. What was the first yellow card for? I can't remember that.
The first yellow, he was pulling back, wasn't he?
Who was that on? Was that on Spore?
I think it was. I can't remember if it was Spore or Ikpeazu, but he got a yellow card before that for pulling somebody back. Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe obviously if he had been booked, you're right. Then yeah, second yellow card, it'd have been off. It'd have been a different game. I was under the impression that the fans were calling for a straight red, and I didn't think it was a straight red personally.
Okay, right. And Jacob, I know you thought we were on top in the first half. Now I would go along with that in some sense, but I didn't really think we hurt Birmingham that much. But like you say, I think we were the better side in the first half. There's not much doubt. But taking in the whole 90 minutes, were you a little bit disappointed with our display as an attacking entity on Saturday?
Yeah, over the whole 90 minutes I was. I'm trying to be glass half full because I'm going into Luton thinking we can actually get something out of that. And so looking at, again, I'll mention him again, but Hernandez, I thought it was a matter of time. I'd love to see the percentage of time we were in there, that third of their half, their box area with Hernandez on the ball in the first half, because I think it would be quite a while. But over the course of the whole game, but the thing is, once they scored, they put everyone behind the ball and say, come break us down. Yeah, and that's where, like, a George Friend isn't going to let you past him. He's going to do everything in his power to stop that happening. So, yeah, I felt we've found that a lot recently, trying to break a team down when they don't want to be broken down. You know, when they sit behind the ball, it's nigh on impossible. But we found that for a few years, haven't we? So overall, attacking wise, yeah, we need to get
I think Jacob's spot on it. What was frustrating me the most about our attacking display was you've got 6 foot centre halves and George Friend included, and we're trying to go a long ball against with Spore and Watmore, and you're like, these guys are never going to win the headers, and they were just dealing with it so comfortably. Now, surely Warnock has to look at that and think, right, we can't beat them with the long ball in the air. He even said before the game how physical they are. So why did he go? Why did he try going that route? Why not bring Isaiah Jones or someone in who's going to get down the sides and put crosses in? We were just lumping it forwards and it was just coming back. And when we went 1-0 down, there was no responding. And then when we went 2-0 down, there was no responsive. We just didn't create anything throughout the whole game. And for me, Warnock got that completely wrong.
Jacob, I mean, got Steve Golby in touch, and we've already had lots of comments on this situation here with regards to the keeper and Joe Lumley. And Steve saying there, 2 bad decision-making cost us both the goals. I mean, we've had a chat before we come on air tonight with regards to both the goals, but predictably, Lumley came in for quite a bit of flack, both during the game and then after the match as well. But people have to remember as well, he's been part of a defence that's got 3 clean sheets on the belt before that game. But taking that aside, what did you make of what happened on Saturday?
He's like that all the time. I don't have much faith in his goalkeeping abilities. I think, he has had 3 clean sheets. I think that's largely to do with the defence. For me this season, there's been many occasions where he's looked too shaky and he just doesn't fill me full of confidence. He spilled that shot at Barnsley and he's very lucky Sol Bamba came across, so Barnsley would have had a goal. He's missing that. I think he should come for balls when he doesn't come out for them. He should be running out, command his box differently. Like, all in all, including his clean sheets, he doesn't fill me full of confidence, even with his mistake. I'm not getting on his back for that one mistake. But Warnock made a comment. He said, a good goalkeeper will get you 10 to 15 points per season. He'll lose us points. Right. I think we've lost, and I don't want to get on his back, but I think we've lost that game because of that mistake. Because, fair play that the fellas should still lift their heads, but our heads went after that, and that is a poor mistake for a keeper to make. Really, really poor. So I think he's going to lose his points and not the other way around. And yes, we have been blessed with the Darren Randolphs, but we've also got Luke Daniels there, who was he's a decent keeper. He was a second keeper at a very, very good side, and he also had a decent 4 or 5 match run. So I think if a couple more, and for me, I'd be chucking him in because we can't really trust his hands, in my opinion.
I understand that, but when you're changing a goalkeeper, it affects the dynamic of the squad massively. And I agree with what Jacob said. I think he is personally going to lose more points than he is. But let's not forget, he did keep 3 clean sheets, but his performance at Cardiff, he kept us in the game in that 15 minutes, making some crucial saves. So I think he has got it in him, but it's the decision making, coming out for that at the edge of, that's where, for me, he's the likes of Bettinelli. He's no better and he's no worse than Bettinelli. And look what the fans got on the back. And I think keepers are the easy target. Nobody's talking about the Sol Bamba missing the header for the second goal. It's all about Joe Lumley, and I think it's a bit of a scapegoat, really. And I'm not sticking up for Joe Lumley because I don't rate him. I'm just saying, as a bigger picture, there's more issues.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, the viewers have come in with their thoughts, and this is what it's all about, all from different angles. Matthew Grove saying Lumley's been under a lot of stick, mainly from the home fans. If they'd seen some of his performances away from one like a derby, he is hot and cold, but we've got to keep faith in him. Then Jeffrey Wood, just straight to the point, said, "Oh my God, Lumley is rubbish." So there you go. Tom M was in touch with us there as well, saying Bettinelli was the worst keeper the club's ever had. Lumley streets ahead of him. So yeah, like you say, people will see things differently. That's what's the beauty about football. But yeah, at the moment, I think Joe Lumley, and I know you mentioned as well about his reaction after the goal, Jacob, that maybe got 1 or 2 people a little bit upset on Saturday.
Yeah, I think you've got to be a little bit more stadium aware, socially aware after you've had a clanger, not to turn around to the fans and say, "Come on." I think you could probably do that to your mates, but you don't do that when there's like thousands of fans behind you. And I think I wasn't overly impressed with how they started booing him after. I wouldn't be doing that. No. But he's got to be a little bit more aware not to do that at that point. And I do understand what people are saying, but I just think he's got too many mistakes in him. I do not disagree. He's had some brilliant shot stops, but he's paid to do that. He is paid. And like Dave said, he kept us in the Cardiff game. I think, though, that he's got too many clangers in him, like 1 too many. And I think he is better than Bettinelli. I don't know who said that there, but I read it. I think he is. Bettinelli was the worst keeper I think I've ever seen in a Boro top. God knows how he's in Chelsea now, but I would prefer. It's a difficult one because who knows if Luke Daniels is going to be any better? Is the grass greener on the other side? I just want Randolph back, mate.
I think there'll be a lot of people agreeing with you on that one, Jacob, but I think that ship sailed. But going back, David, to Saturday, it was bad enough conceding that first goal. But before we had even time to clear our heads, we conceded the second one. And again, it was another poor goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, we just didn't clear our heads, did we? I think we were shocked at what had just happened with the Lumley mistake. And I said just before we went live, there was a 30-second period before they scored where there was a 5-yard pass and we played it straight out for a throw-in. And you could just tell our heads were gone. I said to the lad who was next to us, I said, we're going to concede pretty quick again here because we're just so disjointed. And, they didn't even have to work for the second goal. That was the most frustrating part. It was just a lump over the top. Bamba and Peltier were all over the place. We lost the second ball, and Hogan just does what he does, doesn't he? It was a striker's goal.
Yeah.
And then at that point, the game's dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to bring you back in again, Jacob. Here, David's made a point. I'd like you to come up because obviously we were all a bit euphoric last week after the 3 wins on the row. David said here, our luck ran out on Saturday. Barnsley should have been 2 up before we scored. Peterborough required a penalty in the last 10 minutes, and people said Peterborough really should have had a penalty earlier in that second half against us, and that could have changed everything. Do you think we have been a little bit lucky in the last 3 games before Birmingham, and that's a little bit of a reality check on Saturday?
Perhaps, but we've also been unlucky at points as well. I'd like to think that there's a lot of players that upped it recently, and I've personally seen enough to think we can do better. And considering the state of this league, apart from the top 2 and the inconsistency, and how in this world we were in the top 6, or even a glimpse of a second, considering some of the performances before the last 3 that we won, is beyond me. So Yeah, we might have rode our luck a little bit. However, I still think that there's more gears to go. I really believe that. And even based on the first half against Birmingham, I'm going to go into the Luton game thinking we can press teams, we can attack teams, we can create chances. I just like us to hit the back of the net, of course.
I think that highlighted was still missing that creative playmaker. Centrally, the likes of Lee Tomlin, the likes of Gaston Ramirez. When it comes to that, I think we're a little bit toothless in attack. So in January, I think that's one area we should be looking for, as well as depth at full-back situation. So
you don't think Piero's that man, David, or not yet?
Yeah. For me, he's a poor man's George Saville, and I like George Saville. I thought he was good. I'm hoping I'm wrong. Oh. Every performance I've seen with Piero, I've seen mistakes in there, and not just Saturday's performances. Everyone was off the boil, but apart from where he was exceptionally good against Cardiff, the other games I've just thought he's a fish out of water at the moment. And I'm hoping that comes.
Jacob, I can see you're itching to come in there, mate.
I'm just singing "Si Senor" in my head as he's saying it. In some sense, I would agree, though. Like he hasn't been great, but I just think that you can see in him what he can be.
What can he be, Jacob? What is he?
I just think with some of his deft passing abilities, which we even seen against, and Saville's done them as well, by the way. But what we've seen against Birmingham is crossing ability, shooting ability. I think that goal he scored against Cardiff, he showed this collectiveness on the ball that this is a good player. And those kind of flashes show me that this kid has some more in him. And I do think he has a complete different level of potential to George Saville.
So would you say he's more of a 10 than an 8 then? Because I think as an 8, he's really struggled. And as a 10, I can see what you're saying, potentially as a 10, maybe.
I've seen flashes in both areas, to be honest, mate, and I couldn't put my finger on which one. Because in a 10, I'm like, has he got the feet for a 10? And that kind of awkwardness that a 10 has. And as an 8, I think he gets caught out with spacing behind him too much. So I think there's that, which one's he going to be? Although he was a bit more aggressive in the last few games as well, which I've liked. And he was getting his head on balls and stuff. But jury's out in terms of where I see him. Although I do think he'll find his feet eventually, mate. And I was saying a few games ago, what if?
No, I hope you're right. I just think as a centre midfielder, his positional play is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, I'd agree. Me and you play centre mid, so we're probably wincing, but we can see that spacing behind you, mate, don't we?
Yeah.
Paul Lewis has been in touch, lads. He said, win one, lose one, draw one, same old season after season. A club that's becoming a permanent member of the Championship. We need something to drive this club forward. Where's the drive and ambition? And it's all right saying that, I think, lads, isn't it? But you need a bucket load of money and playing within the rules of financial fair play as well. It's not quite as simple. I do think Steve Gibson has got the drive and ambition for the club to move on, but it's got to be done within the rules. Or would you disagree with that, David?
No, it definitely. And I think, some of the signs we've done in this window are streetwise, and I think it's a different direction which we've not took before. The likes of James Lee Slicky on loan with an obligation to buy if he meets certain standards. Same with Boro. I think if you get those types of signings right with Kieran Scott, I think it has got a good pedigree at maybe, having a good successful window. But gone are the days where Gibson's going to go out and spend 15 million on a striker, and we don't want that because we just go back to square one. So if we can get 3 or 4 signings and structure the deals right, it doesn't have to be a really expensive window.
Just going back to Saturday, David, I mean, we've talked before about Neil Warnock and his substitutions when he uses them. And I think his changes on Saturday baffled quite a few people. And I think the whole day just went flat, even before we went 2-0 down. But the whole day went flat. But those changes didn't really have any sort of positive effect on the outcome either, did they?
Yeah, I'm with what Jacob said earlier. When he took Hernandez off, I was just like, if Hernandez is tiring, because he put some shift in, I could understand it. But why not bring Isaiah Jones, who's similar to him, and we knew we were getting beat in the air. And I don't really see the fascination of Duncan Watmore personally. I know he tries hard, but for me, you're coming up against centre halves like that. That was the ideal opportunity to get Coburn on with a bit of height, and he just got it completely wrong. But it's easy for us to say as fans in hindsight. Now we know the result, but even sat there, I just thought, we've lost this game straight away.
Just very flat, wasn't it? There was no spark or anything that got the crowd going. And I think it was almost as though everyone was resigned to the defeat once we went 2-0 down.
Yeah, exactly. And
played them at their own game. As soon as Crooks went up top and we started to try and pump it up to him, I just put my head in my hands and thought, ridiculous. The only way you're going to do that is on the ground, snappy. I'd have probably moved Tav in the middle or something to give us that bit of bite, just not Crooks up top and not taking Hernandez off. Isaiah Jones would have been on the pitch. Hernandez would have stayed on and have a bit of zip going forward, change it, but don't put Crooksy up top and just launch it to him. They were having because don't forget, he's not great in the air. He's blessed with height, but he's not blessed with heading ability. So, yeah, I think Warnock, but as Dave says, in hindsight, end of the day, he's obviously seen something and thought he'd change the game in a particular way. But
yeah, Michael Pellin's got in touch again, and it's the weekly conundrum that we have on this show with regards to Tav. And Michael's saying, why did Tav stay on the pitch? He was really poor. Well, my answer to that would be, I mean, you could have taken most players off there. Hernandez was probably the one I wouldn't have taken off, but there was quite a few you could have taken off on Saturday. What did you make of that, David?
Yeah, at least Tav was trying. I think he was made a scapegoat on Saturday, but like you said, tried to find him as a player on the pitch who had a positive game, and I think you're going to struggle. He's an easy target, Tav, because he puts the effort in, but his end product's poor, and because you've got that, you want to be careful what you wish for, because we're a lot worse side without him in, and if the fans carry on, they're just going to absolutely ruin his creativity. And we did it with Downing, and you're going to see a complete different player. So we just need to be careful. But like I said to you earlier, his end product needs to improve because he's so inconsistent, and he hasn't got goals and assists over 12 over the course of the season since he's been in the team for 3.5 seasons. So, I think there is a lot to work on with Tav.
Okay. And as we've said before, Jacob, the last few weeks has been great, being in the top 6. But as pleasing as that was, Saturday's game an indicator that there's an awful lot of work that we've done before we consider ourselves playoff contenders? Or do you think, hey, we've still won 4 in the last 6. We're only 3 points now off the top 6. Where do you stand on that debate, Jacob?
I don't think this league's great. I don't see that as a massive hurdle. Yeah, we played poor second half. We didn't first. I know I keep banging on about that. Teams are losing points around us. West Brom aren't doing great. They've won 1, lost 1, won 1, lost 1. Luton were up there in 5th. They've dropped down. We're not in a great league. I don't know what people expect us to do, but we're not in a great league. We beat Luton, and all of a sudden we'll be tapping on the top 6 again. I literally think that we've been victim in that game to an error and our heads going down. We didn't. I don't know how you could watch that game and say the first half was abysmal, because it wasn't. Like you can only look at the stats from the game as well. We had more possession, more shots. Like it's not like we got battered all game by a worse team. I don't think we did. So for me, it's more of like, okay, we move on. A mistake's happened, and I'll probably change my tune if we lose against Luton.
What I would say is, as fans, and we've all got our opinions as well. What we seem to forget is we're a championship club and championship players. Now, we all talk about Tav and his consistency. If Tav was consistent, he wouldn't be in this championship. If McNair was consistent, he wouldn't be in the championship. Players in the championship are usually there because they're inconsistent with forms, and teams are also inconsistent. So we just need a reality check of where we are as a club and what we expect. If Tav was bringing 9 or 10 performances every week, he'd be in a Burnley shirt or someone in the Premier League who's stabilised, but we're not. So we're going to get this from players. We've all been saying how good Crooks was, but he was poor again. Now, I don't see anybody coming on the viewers criticising Crooks just after one type of performance. So the inconsistency needs to be addressed throughout the team, because we're going to get that.
Yeah, no, fair point, mate. Gary Tav, just back on the debate about ambition and drive. He said Gibson has to decide if he's in the game or not. The gap is getting bigger by the season for those who have and those who don't. I think, to be honest, that's just a general thing anyway. If you're not in the Premier League, the gap is getting bigger. Even within the Premier League itself, the gap's getting bigger and bigger between those at the top and at the bottom of that league. So I think that's only naturally going to happen while we're in the Championship.
The only problem we have that with James is that because of the way he's gone against FFP and put clubs into turmoil, he's got to tread carefully than anybody else, hasn't he?
Totally, 100%, definitely. Because, there'd be nothing more that the likes of Derby or Reading or Sheffield Wednesday would like to see is us breaching financial fair play. Because I tell you what, we'd get more than probably a 12-point deduction, wouldn't we?
Oh, yeah. And be a laughing stock as well.
Yeah.
On that point, though, when we're talking about Gibson's ambition, and I know people question it, because I read a comment earlier on that, we've got to remember that the appointment of Kieran Scott, to me, that screams ambition. I mean, look at Norwich, and for me, Middlesbrough Football Club is a project now. We're like, I know Warnock's on his way out because he is eventually. For me, we've got a project. We've got someone behind the scenes who is projecting what this club can be, and that's the signings he's looking to make, a style of play we're looking to adapt to. So for me, the future's bright. Even if someone says it looks bleak right now, Middlesbrough, in my opinion, are only going to improve with Kieran Scott behind the scenes, and we've seen it. He did it with Norwich, and that's why he's been employed by Middlesbrough, and it speaks volumes of Steve Gibson. For those who say he's got no ambition, and for the crazy fans who say sell the club, to appoint someone like that, for me, it's like I'm looking forward to, even if we don't get in the top 6 this year, whatever, next year. And January, I'm looking forward to January to see who he's keeping tabs on. Warnock said earlier in his press conference, didn't he, that he's looking at a couple of players for January. He wants another big striker. I'm like, there's probably other areas, but he'd want another big striker if he had 6 big strikers, wouldn't he?
Oh, I would, yeah.
What do you make of this comment, David? Ian Hills has got in touch and just said, anytime we get near the playoffs, we mess it up. The club does not want to move on. Do you buy that?
I can't see the statement saying the club doesn't want to move on because, what owner, what manager, what fans don't want to move on. But you could argue the same for nearly every team who's in around that area. It only takes 1 or 2 games to slip up and you're out of it, then you're back in. But yeah, he's got a point where we've got there and we have drifted out. But again, that comes to inconsistency, throughout the league. If we were consistent, we wouldn't be in the league. And there's only 3-4 teams who are consistent in this league at the moment. So it's everybody else is going to be interchanging throughout and it's not until the last 5 or 10 games where I think you can really look at the table.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the one disappointing. I was talking to a few people who went on Saturday, and it was their first game of the season they'd been to see the Boro, and there was a decent crowd in, over 21,000, and they came away and they were a bit like, oh well, it's just like the same old, really, isn't it? And you're like, it wasn't the greatest sell, is it, after a performance like that and a result like that? And as you say, everyone's expectations are up. Jacob, would you say that's a fair point, or you just think, as David mentioned, it's just the inconsistencies of not just the Boro, but most teams in the Championship in general?
I'm probably going to go back to the last comment I made and just see the bigger picture in terms of the project of the club. We've got a project now, and I think with that appointment, we should be looking at things a little bit differently. Not just the next 5 or 6 games, not just Neil Warnock in charge. There's someone after. They're probably already looking. So for me, there's a bigger perspective here that we need to kind of tap into to say, you know what, let's get actually excited as Boro fans, because the future might be a little bit brighter than it is now. Because of he's in charge, we're not looking for Warnock to do something spectacular this season and hope that he stays on next season and hope that his magic works. Our faith really isn't in him, so to speak, because there's something a bit bigger going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, we're doing something different in terms of recruitment, Jacob, aren't we? With Piero, Sleeky, and Sporara. I mean, I could be completely wrong regarding Piero, but it's interesting as a fan that we're going after these types of signings, and it shows ambition, doesn't it? And I think that's what we've all been crying out for 3 or 4 seasons. We want a bit of ambition, and the likes of Piero and that signing has done it. I'm not writing the guy off. I'm just saying what I've seen so far. I've struggled to see the hype. But, look, Juninho was the same, how long it took him. Saliki might be the same. But it is a good approach that the club are doing. we've just got to get the next appointment as manager right, because we keep going from one extreme to the other, and our philosophies just keep changing. We need to identify a philosophy and stick with it.
Yeah. Paul Lewis has got back in touch with us. I sense Paul's a little bit frustrated with things at the minute. And he's referred to a project and saying that's kept us in the Championship for 9 and 10 years. Not good enough. Paul Mercer once said a club like Boro that had been in the Premier League for so long as we have should be more capable of staying there. Dreadful, same old footy for years now. But as you say, Jim, hopefully brighter days are ahead. Sorry, mate, go on.
The game's changed, hasn't it? So it's easy to say that as a viewer, to say we should be in the Premier League because we were there for so long. But let's not forget, 10, 15 years ago, the owners weren't billionaires, they were millionaires, where the majority of the owners in the Premier League now are billionaires, and Steve Gibson isn't there. So, there has been decisions where it's been a slide and appointments and stuff. But just to say, we've been in the Premier League, I think it's a bit, for me, it doesn't really wash.
Right.
I'd just say blame Gary Monk. He's probably right, but blame Gary.
Well, two players that were here when Gary Monk was here, and they were back on Teesside at the weekend before we move off from the Birmingham game. Two players that played a huge part in our last promotion to the Premier League in 2016 were Grant Ledbetter and George Friend, and they rightly received a great reception from the Boro fans at the weekend, didn't they, Jacob?
Two cracking lads, brilliant footballers when they played for Middlesbrough. Not so much when Ledbetter went to Sunderland, but we won't talk about that. He's a Boro fan, isn't he? But yeah, brilliant. Him and Adam Clayton, that partnership was great. They deserved it. They're great players for the club. George Friend is like a Teesside ambassador. He even put, I think it was Twitter or Instagram, he had his Boro top on last week, singing happy birthday to someone. I absolutely love George Friend, and I guess the bittersweet is that he walks away with 3 points, even though we didn't get him. But I do love him, so I'm like, if anyone's going to have him, you have him, George.
Yeah. What about yourself, Dave? Anything you want to add to that, mate?
No, I think he's hitting there, man. I think with Ledbetter crying on the pitch, just shows how much the club meant to him, and he's went through a roller coaster at us. He came, and if you could have asked him about the promotions and what have you, he'd have snapped your hand off. And what a player he was for us. And George Friend.
Yeah. Okay. Well, boys, 2 big games ahead this week. We've got 2 tough away days. We've got Luton Town first tomorrow night. And David, they're a side that's enjoyed a reasonably positive start of the season. And 1 place above us in the table. Have they surprised you?
Not so much surprising, because even last season when Jones got reappointed, they played some decent football. But again, they're inconsistent. And I think it's going to be an interesting game tomorrow night. Surprisingly, regardless of what happened on Saturday, I just think it's in us to win that game tomorrow. With all the hype round Warnock and it being his breaking game, I think there's going to be a bounce back.
Oh, fingers crossed. Hope you're right, mate. And Jacob, so far this season, the Hatters have had 7 games at home. They've won 3, drawn 3, lost just the 1. So it goes without saying that Kenilworth Road's a tough place to visit. I think the Boro haven't won there since 1974, so it's a tough place to grind out a 3-pointer, isn't it?
Yeah, and they've got a couple of strikers who score goals, mate. What's his Adebayo, is it? And is it Cornick?
Yeah, Adebayo and Cornick as well have got 13 goals between them so far.
I'm jealous. He's injured, and he Adebayo, whatever his name is. I think he's injured.
Right.
So, yeah, he's out.
So, yeah, they're an expansive side. They've got quite a love story, haven't they, with the manager coming back? But they're not great. They're inconsistent. They're probably above the pay grade at the moment. They've got Mpanzu that apparently we went after. He's good. You find it hard getting the ball past him as that cheeky little CDM in there. But I don't look at them and think, I'm much more worried about playing a West Brom, for example. And I agree. I think that we've quite got the capability to get a win there. They're inconsistent. I was just having a little look there. They've won 1, drawn 1, lost 1. Like they're up and down, up and down, up and down.
Bit like Willoughby.
Yeah,
well, he's a bit of a one for you. Robbie's got back in touch again, and he said they're the one team that did win at Kenilworth Road this year, and they won 5-0 there. But on the flip side of that, Coventry also went there, who were above us in the table, and they lost 5-0 at Luton. So, as you say, Jacob, it's this league. You can't really predict it or read what's going to happen, can you?
No, you can't. But with that in mind, it wouldn't surprise me if we went 6 at the back now.
And the thing is, David, at the weekend, we were disappointing against Birmingham, but from the reports I've read and what I've seen on TV, Luton were at Preston at the weekend, and they put in a pretty substandard performance themselves and lost 2-0. So they'll also be looking for a reaction tomorrow night, their players, and the manager, Nathan Jones, won't he?
Oh, 100%. And you could say that throughout the league, couldn't you, for every team, because I hate to say the word inconsistency because it seems like that's all I've said all show, but every team has that sort of blip and want to bounce back, and you've just got to concentrate on yourselves. And I just think if we can get it right, you've got the likes of Fry and Dyke still coming back. With a few more additions, we shouldn't be worrying about going to places like Kenilworth Road. I think we're more than good enough to put up a fight against them. They concede goals, but they score them as well. So I think it'd be interesting to see how we set up tomorrow with the formation. So,
Jacob, the last 2 times since Luton came back to the Championship in 2019, we've drawn on both our visits to Luton, to Kenilworth Road. Would that represent a decent result for you tomorrow, or do you think it's one we've got to be looking to win?
Depends on the performance. Was one of those draws that opening 3-3 game when? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was.
We were all optimistic after that game, weren't we?
Oh, man, that was. I was like, oh look how good we are. The next minute, look how bad we are. There was just this load of space in midfield. Yeah, it depends on performance for me, mate. I'm looking forward to January to see what signings we get in, put it that way. And I look forward to us being in and around, hopefully, the top 6. If we got a point out of it with a really positive performance, yeah. If we're clinging on and get a point, no. But when you're asking me for my prediction, I'm going to go for a Boro win.
The only thing for me, Jacob, is because we've got West Brom away and I can't see us getting anything there, even though they're not playing very well. I think tomorrow night makes it a bit of a must-win, so we've got something going into the international break.
Yeah.
I think I would go along with you there, mate. Neil Cowan's heading down to Bedfordshire tomorrow. He said he's got a day off work, car filled up with petrol, scarf's ready, ticket in the pocket. What more could you want apart from a win, of course? And I think that's a fair point you make there, David. I mean, I think if we'd have won on Saturday against Birmingham, I think these 2 games, Luton and West Brom, to some extent, would have been a free hit in a way. And it would have been, you've already got 24 points on the board. Whatever you pick up from these away games, it's been a fantastic set of fixtures after the international break.
Yeah.
And that would have been all well and good. But I think we put ourselves under a bit of pressure now tomorrow night after losing on Saturday, haven't we?
100%, yeah, because we would have started the international break strong and finished it poor, and that's not, you're more or less admitting you're back to square one before, like where we were at Hull then. And that's not what that's gone from last week where we all had optimism. It's flipped, completely, and we don't want to go back to that. We should be trying to look up now because of those 3 results, regardless of the opposition, Yeah.
Okay then, mate, I'll give you a first shout. What's the result going to be tomorrow night down at Kenilworth Road?
2-1.
2-1 Boro?
2-1 Boro, yeah.
Good man. Jacob there, his brow is furrowed. He's not quite sure what to say.
I might see if I've got my crystal ball. Do you know? 1-0 Boro.
1-0 Boro. Oh, so still lots of optimism. Steve Gorby's not sharing that though. He's gone 3-1 for the Hatters. And Robbie the Blues fan, he's come back 2-0 Boro win.
Good lad.
So, yeah, we forgive you, Robbie, for Saturday, sort of. But yeah, cheers for that, mate.
What about you, James? What you going for?
Can I be honest? I would be happy to get a draw tomorrow. I would be happy to get a point down there. I just think we need to get another point. Nothing worse for me than having won those first 3 games to potentially lose your next 3 and lose Birmingham, Luton, West Brom. Yeah. And as you said, I think that puts us right back to where we were at the last international break. And I know league placings don't count for anything this time of the year, but I can imagine a lot of people will look Saturday night and say, if we've lost these 2 games and say, you're 17th in the Championship, what a disaster, and this, that, and the other. And I just think we need to get something on the board tomorrow night. And I think we will.
So if we got a point tomorrow and then just say we got beat Saturday. Would you say that's been a good period between the international breaks?
I would sort of say it's been acceptable. It could have been better, but still 10 points from 6 games isn't. It's not shoddy, but it could have been better. But it could have been worse, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Don't forget, Luton are unbeaten in the last 4. For the mugs, they're not going to roll over, are they?
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be a tough game tomorrow. Ray Hockey's got 3-0 Boro with Lumley man of the match. I mean,
got beat at Preston, didn't they?
No, I've got my little trusty phone out here. Look,
they let me down on my bet on Saturday.
Is that 2 results that day?
I've got draw. No, yeah, the last 5 I've got draw, win, loss. Is that the most recent? There you go. Sorry, I'm reading it back to front. You might be guessing that one, mate. I'm all over the place.
They let me down on my bet at the weekend. That's how I know.
Well, we've got that tomorrow night, and then we've got another tough one at the weekend, a really tough one. The demanding weekends with, on paper, probably one of our most challenging fixtures of the season. A trip to the Hawthorns. But, David, in recent times, the trip down to the West Midlands has been quite a profitable one for us, hasn't it?
Yeah, I remember when we were under Tony Pulis, and Pulis was getting absolute pelters, and Assam Blonga came on and changed the game. And obviously, Fletcher's brilliant goal on, was it New Year's Day or in between Christmas and New Year?
Between Christmas and New Year, yeah.
Yeah, they're not playing well. I've got a friend who's a season ticket holder for West Brom, and he was saying this Ishmael, he said the football's garbage. He said he even seen better football under Tony Pulis. And he's saying that says a lot. He said they're so direct. He said, he thinks they'll probably start with Hugo on Saturday as well, because he likes to go for a target man. So if we can get that physical battle right on against Saturday, I think it's going to be a completely different game. I can't see this team keeping it. I know we did against a poor opposition, but against a better opposition, I can't see us keeping a clean sheet, and that's my worry.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting there. Your comments there, backed up by Steve Golby saying that West Brom are very inconsistent. Robbie, again, the Blues fan, saying that they're nothing without Pereira in the side. So, yeah, it's interesting. But, Jacob, the 3rd in the league, they've just come down from the Premier League. The expectations from their fans, no doubt, will be that they're going to bounce back at the first time of asking this season, isn't it? And that creates its own pressures, doesn't it?
Yeah, but to echo that, they've been inconsistent the last 5 games. Won 2, lost 3. And if they don't, are they playing midweek as well? Who have they got midweek?
The Hull on Wednesday night.
They don't get a win there. A bit more disgruntled. I don't know. We could see the fall of West Brom. We might put the nail in the coffin to start dropping them out the top 6. Who knows? But funnily enough, I feel us more against a West Brom than I do a Luton. But I'm also I think we might get 6 points out the next 2. And I know I'm being a bit. Look, I get it, but I'm genuine here. I'm not just being an eternal optimist, although I try and be like that. But I genuinely think we can, especially if we beat Luton. If we get the 3 points at Luton, then. And I know some people will go, he's off his head in, but if we do it, I'm going to remind you all.
Well, Steve Golby said it's more than that. He thinks you're more than off your head, mate. But
to be honest, I've got a few fruity things in here.
And as you mentioned there earlier, David, Valérien Ismaël, who took over at West Brom, was at Barnsley last year, and he is employing a similar sort of approach and tactics there, but he can still call on a lot of quality. He's brought Alex Mowat over with him from Barnsley, but you've got Carlin Grant, Matt Phillips, Snodgrass. I know he been at fault one of the goals at the weekend that they conceded. Sam Johnson in goal. They've got a lot of quality to call upon, haven't they?
They've got Premier League players, and you just think if there was a different maybe manager in there who could adapt his way of playing to suit the quality of players that he's got, they could be up there with Bournemouth and walking away with the league. But he's got players playing long ball, and we've seen that under Tony Pulis. We had the players, but because we played a certain style, fans were blaming the players' performances, but they're just following a manager's orders, and they're going for the long throws from furlong and just trying to score direct from set pieces. So if we can cope with the set pieces and we can cope with the aerial threat, there's nothing to say we can't get something down there. I am with Jacob. I think of the two, I'd feel more confident going to West Brom than Luton.
Right. Well, Luke Boy's also in agreement. He thinks they're all winnable games, Luton and West Brom. So maybe people don't think you're off your head that much, Jacob. And there's a few people agreeing with you.
Apparently, my medication's wearing off. One lad said. I'm looking at current form. I'm looking at the fact they got beat at Swansea. They just got 3-0. They're not the best team ever. Like, they're not, and they're inconsistent. And I genuinely think the side can get a win against a team like that. Luton, again, inconsistent. They might have not been beaten in the last 4, but they've drawn, I think, 2 or 3 of those. So I'm like, it's like a 6-pointer. We've just come off the back of a defeat. We'll be riled up. So there's reasons behind the madness. I'm not just out there going, oh. And I said this as well for the Sheffield United one, and I'm sure I got a few choice comments for that. But I got the flipping result right, didn't I?
That's it. You say you never know. As the Boro, unpredictable. This is what can happen, and there's sometimes surprises and get a result when we don't expect it. But 2 players we might come up against at the weekend, Jacob, that we know a fair bit about. Jordan Hugo and Adam Reach. How much of a threat, if they're involved, would they be?
I haven't paid much attention to Ricci, to be honest. I mean, I didn't think he was that great at Sheffield Wednesday before they went. So I was actually surprised that he got that move. When he signed for them, I was thinking, I didn't think a club like that would take him. But I don't actually know how he's doing, to be honest. But if it was to go anything like he was when they got relegated, I didn't think he was setting the world alight. The last couple of seasons, he wasn't great, was he? And the Sheffield fans were saying that. Jordan Hugo, that's another nightmare. We let him go, and then he does well at Norwich, doesn't he? And he's going to be a handful. But if Sol Bamba's firing, then I'm sure he can deal with him. He's not the best striker in the world. I'm more worried about that Grant. Is he one of the? He's pinged 18 this season or something, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And we'll probably, against that, I'd have thought would be pretty defensive and try and counter attack because they can score goals. Was it 3-0 they beat Bristol City?
Yeah.
So I think you're going to have to try and counter-attack a team like that. I don't think it's going to be all gung-ho going forward. But sometimes we play all right like that, soaking up the pressure and releasing Jonesy and Hernandez, maybe as wing-backs or something like that. So
Jake, you've made a good point there. Like, for me, I think you've got to get Hernandez further up the field, and I think you've got to get Tavernier away from that wing-back. For me, he's wasted. Get him more centrally and see what he could do. So it'd be interesting to see how he sets up the teams against those 2 teams.
Yeah, Luke Boyce saying again there, we play better attacking football way. Andrew Hill saying, I hope Boro win 1-0 tomorrow at Luton, and on Saturday we'll win 2-0. And Steve Golby, you want to be very careful what you're saying, Steve. If Boro win 2 games away this week, I'll swap Hartlepool for Boro. Steve,
it's only because their manager's going.
Someone take a picture of that. Can we print? I'm going to print screen it. I'm on a Mac. I'm using my mate's Mac. I don't know how to do it.
I'll mention it to him. Don't worry about that.
Well, it's out there. There's hundreds of people seeing this now, Steve. So next week, your screensaver, it won't have Hartlepool top on. You'll have a Boro top on. So there you go, mate. We'll see what happens. So both you lads have gone for a win at Luton. Can we get the double and bring some more misery on Steve Golby? What do we reckon, boys?
Go on, Dave.
I reckon 1-0 on Saturday.
Do you think we'll? Did you say we'll win the last game as well?
Yeah.
What am I doing to the show?
No. Honestly, I was actually worried about the Birmingham game, and then these 2 I felt a little bit more comfortable with.
I always find it amusing that no matter how bad Boro have maybe played the weekend before, and whatever we say on this programme, when it comes to predictions, nearly everyone goes, yeah, Boro will win. They'll win. No bother. They'll win. Where we're going now, we're at Liverpool. Yeah, we'll win.
It's your heart, isn't
it? No fears then for you then going to the Hawthorns, Jacob.
I wouldn't say that. But, yeah, I can see it now. Boro have 32% possession, soak it all up and win 2-0 by catching up on the break. Yeah, I'm going to... What did I go? 1-0 Luton. I'm going to go 2-0. 2 clean sheets. I'm going to go 2-0 at the Hawthorns.
Well, Michael Pellet said we should all be in politics and that. I think that, yeah, that's a fair point, Michael, that, yeah. All I'll say is, I think personally, I think if we get anything more than 2 points this week, I'll be more than happy.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
I haven't been a bit of a stick in the mud here, but I think if we get anything more than 2 points this week, I'll be happy because I think it's 2 tough games. We seem to be struggling again with injuries, whether that's a smoke screen or not from Neil Warnock, but it just seems as though in a way, like last time, we can't almost wait for this international. Hopefully back on. Yeah, we're back there again, lads. So yeah, anything more than 2 points will be good for me, but yeah, it will all come to fruition and we'll see what happens next week. I'm afraid, everyone, that's all we've got time for on this week's show. Many thanks to everyone contributing out there and watching, getting involved. Really appreciate it. And mostly thanks to David and Jacob for joining us. Great to see you again, lads.
No, it's a pleasure.
Mate. Pleasure to be here.
We can get back on that drink now,
Yep.
Jacob.
We'll be back next Monday.
Pass the vodka.
Yeah,
sorry,
Jacob's back on the pot again. We'll be back next Monday, looking back on these 2 wins. I mean, 2 games against West Brom and Luton. We'll look back at that next week, as well as reviewing the championship season in general so far as we reach the 3rd international break of the season. Until then, from us all here at Boro Fan TV, have a good week, good night, and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.